Hi, welcome to toddfun.com. Today we're going to do some ham radio stuff. We're going to do some HF ham radio work. I'm going to show the installation of my sky loop antenna. That's a loop antenna as opposed to a dipole or vertical, something like that. Now, I've been a general licensed ham for 4 years. I haven't done any HF stuff because the equipment's expensive. I have had some VHF, UHF handhelds, and that's all I've really used. So I never really had a need for an outdoor antenna. Maybe a little J-pole I have, but I never had anything for the need for the large stuff for HF stuff. I also live in an association, so anything I install has to be very low lying and not really noticeable. Otherwise, I can't have it. I was a backer of the Great Scott Gadgets HackRF One. This is the predecessor toward the Jawbreaker. This was the Kickstarter. And this little guy can receive and transmit from 10 megahertz to 6 gigahertz. So technically I do have an HF rig now. It's just this little expensive box. I actually have I have purchased an up inverter for it too, so I can go under 10 megahertz and up invert into this. So I do have that too. But I need a better antenna. Up until now I've been using just this antenna, and that's not much for reception. So that's what the sky loop is supposed to be for. For the installation, this is mostly just going to be about the installation of the sky loop and then just seeing the HackRF using it. If I do future ham radio stuff with it, and that will be in future stuff. Because this loop is a triangle shaped, it's going to be called the delta loop as opposed to a square or circle or something. I'm going to be using for a wire, I'm using aluminum MIG wire, welding wire. I have a MIG welding wire, I have an aluminum MIG welder. And you only need you can install your loop from 160 meters all the way down to 70 centimeters. You just pick which band you want, and that's the length you want to tune for. But my yard's not that big, so I have to stick to about a 130-foot loop. That's all I can get in my backyard. And so this is about 415 feet of aluminum wire for MIG welding. This is like $10 for this, and I could put up 3 of these of that length, and that puts me in the 20-meter band. So that's a 40-30 wire. I'll put a link to where you can buy this on Amazon for like in the notes for like $10. But then you have to have a feed wire. So I have a feed wire going from my ham shack, my computer room. It's a RG8. I also got that on Amazon. I'll put a link for that. And yeah, by the way, these links do go. I get a profit for if you purchase the stuff, so it kind of supports the channel. You don't have to do that. I'm just, if I'm buying this stuff and I'm using Amazon, it's just easy for me to say link it in. At any rate, then I'm going to go to a Balun. You got to have a Balun for this, but this isn't a dipole, so you don't want a 4-to-1 Balun. You want a 2.5 to 1 Balun because there's a loop. And I learned this particular bit from James Sanders. He has another YouTube channel, I'll link to that, and he sells his Balun on eBay. I'm sure I could have built a 2.5 to 1 Balun, but his talented Balun is a finished, working, tested product and sealed, and okay. So I gave him $80 and ordered one. So I wanted to see if it would work as well for me as he said it would. It's kind of a bit of a gamble. So far I've been real happy with it. Now, like I said, I couldn't put anything bigger than the 20-meter band, but once I installed it and tuned it to I didn't tune it to this, I tuned it to exactly 14.07, and I did that exactly because I wanted the absolute lowest SWR, the absolute best response at 14.07, because that's where I want to be. It's the sweet spot, the beginning sweet spot, because that's the area you're going to center around for doing digital modes, JT65, JT9. I want to do those because they're very low. You can do some very low QRP contacts using those digital modes. Like a watt or less will get you 1,600 miles, and more than that without an amplifier will get you 9,000 miles. The HackRF will will only put out 30 milliwatts, so I probably need an amplifier. Okay, fine. But I'm going to do it without an amplifier just to see, can I make California? Can I make someplace else in Arizona? With a 100-foot RG8 feed line, I'm probably not going to get far at all, and only 30 milliwatts. But amplifier in my future maybe. And I can actually use this installation at different bands. I'll put up a chart here. This is a chart that I just got produced that I used an antenna analyzer, and as you can see, I have really decent SWR. Kind of in the middle lower part of the graph, you're going to see SWR is 1.3 to 1, going up to 2.5 to 1 in the different bands. The 40 meter band, I could definitely use. The 20 definitely, the 15 yes, 12 not so good, 10 I could definitely use, and the 2 meter not at all. So with this, you can basically see that for a general license, and these are the types of modes I can use. You can see that even though I tuned it at 14.07 to be the absolute sweet spot in the 20 meter band, you can see that I can use it on these other bands as well. I didn't try and go any farther than 40 meters, though it probably would have some functionality outside of that anyway. Now those are all going to be usable bands without a tuner. If I wanted to go out and buy a tuner and install an antenna tuner, I could then wouldn't have to worry so much about whether or not I have good SWR in those bands. I just use an antenna tuner to match the antenna to what I needed for the transmit and receive. But I'm trying to do this without an antenna tuner. I'm trying to do this as close to barefoot as you can get with just the HackRF. The next thing I'm going to do today is I want to install a lightning arrestor. Basically, it's just a little thing I got off of Amazon. I'll have a link for that too. And I got the cheapest one. I probably could have got a better one. But basically, if this wire that's hanging 15 feet off the ground gets struck by lightning, well, I think lightning will probably melt this pretty quick. But if it doesn't, then it will go back to the feed line. The feed line will have this lightning arrestor with the little spark gap. We'll see that assembly here in a minute, putting that on, and then we'll see it installed. And then we're going to that basically makes a little bit of safety. It's not perfect safety by any means, but it gives me a little sense that if lightning hits this wire, I got something at least going to ground before it comes into the house, possibly. For those of you who are better at ham stuff, let me know how far off I am with this, but it seems like it'll work. So we'll go and we'll look at those installations. We'll look at how I've rigged up the wire and installed the loop, and then we're going to take a quick glance at a few reception properties, how good a reception we're getting with the HackRF. Well, so here's that lightning arrestor with the ground connector on it. I'll put a link to this. I got it on Amazon. I'll put a link to that where I got it, and I'll also put a link to the talented Balun that you'll see later, just so that those links are in the show notes. Now this, if you can see inside, you can see the center conductor, and then of course this is the outer ground shielding. This is the concept is that this just screws in. This isn't the most expensive one. It's like a $7 one. You can get them much better constructed than this. But really what it is you got this nut really close to that center conductor, as well as this, and then of course there should be like something like a 6-gauge unshielded ground wire crimped into here. So this screws in there, and then we'll crimp on a ground wire. I'm just going to use a spool of this 12-gauge stranded because I have it. Like I say, I'll probably put something, if I get more permanent install, I'll get like a 6-gauge unshielded ground wire, solid copper. There, we got that mounted. I crimped it and I soldered it to make sure, or soldered it. And so I'm going to test continuity with my fluke here just to make sure that there shouldn't be continuity between the center and this, because if there was, that'd be very, very bad. That's only supposed to conduct if there's a lightning strike. It's basically a spark gap, a pretty poor one, but it's a spark gap that goes to this ground. We should have continuity here. That's through it, but no continuity to the spark gap arrestor, lightning arrestor. So a little safety, but let's go put this up. Okay, there's my talented Balun. This is RG8 feeder line going to the shack. This is the lightning arrestor going down to a ground rod. You'll see there's 2 wires going off the ears there for the Balun, and they are 0.03 aluminum MIG welding wire. You want to use aluminum because it has a better tuning ability than like a steel or anything else, and is also easy to work with, and it's really cheap. I did start at 132 feet, and I just kept pulling tighter and tighter on one ear and shortening the loop until I had my antenna analyzer here, of course, and then I just kept pulling it and testing it until I got it exactly at this one is for 14.7 megahertz, but like I say, it'll go farther up and down. That's quite a bit, and we'll see those in the notes. And what it does is it goes out. You can't see it, it's really hard to see, it's getting night. It goes all the way out to a pole over there, and so it stays about 15 feet off the ground and goes to a pole I have in the ground. And there's a pulley up there that it just misses the trees over there. And then back up on this side, it goes out this way and goes out to my son's trampoline. Yay! And it used to have a trampoline shield. That's what I'm using for poles, is the trampoline poles that he doesn't use anymore. And then it's fixed to that one. That one's actually a pulley, but it's a fixed pulley. It doesn't adjust. It's just permanently fixed. And then it goes across behind that tree and back over there. So it is a loop. It's not a dipole. Let's go take a look. Okay, there's the talented Balun, and the lightning arrestor is the screen wire, and it comes down the wall. I'll try and move slow for you. And it comes all the way down. And after some heavy rains, I went out to the hardware store and I got an 8-foot long copper clad grounding rod. They actually sell them. They're about 10 bucks. It's about $3 for that little clamp. They're sold with them. You pound that 8-foot rod, copper clad rod, into the ground, and then you leave a little bit out and you bolt on your lightning arrestor. Now this is a temporary green wire because I want to replace it with a solid 6-gauge wire instead of this stranded stuff. But that's an easy install, and I can upgrade that. But right now this is portable still. I have to take it down at any moment, so that's what we're using for that as a temporary solution. It's something. So this is about as invisible as you can get. There's actually 2 wires up there. You can hardly see them. I haven't had anyone even say they've noticed them yet. So these are stackable poles. I got one pounded about a little more than 3/4 of the way in the ground when it was wet and soft, and then I got a place to tie off the string. And this is the adjustable one at the top. There's a wire or a string going out to a small little plastic pulley. That's a pulley for like the bottom of a sliding glass door, but it's a plastic one, so it won't make contact with that metal. And then this is because this is on a string right here back to a little pivot point, and coming down the pole I can adjust that there single triangular point, and that was how I adjust the length. I just had my son come over here, he held the wire down here, and then I just kept tightening it up until I got the frequency response I wanted, and then he tied it off. And that's the adjustment. That's the only adjustment point you need. We'll go over and take a look at the other one over by the trampoline. Okay, so this trampoline had like a net around it for the longest time, and these are the net poles that hold the net up. There were 6 of them, I believe, yeah. And they are just they're like $100 for the net kit, and they're just stackable metal poles. Well, now I just left one up there, and as you see, I just fastened. I got to get the better lighting on this here. It's getting dark out, so then there's another one of those plastic pulleys, like you would have on a bottom of a sliding glass door, and it's just bolted to that last pole top, and that's fixed. It doesn't have to move. It just has to be on a roller. And then of course the wire goes over there and attaches up there, and that talented Balun is attached to it's just screwed into the wall boards there, and then goes into the shack. So I hope that didn't make you too sick. Okay, so that's the install. We just got to go see how it works now. Okay, we have we have SDR console up, and we're picking up a Morse code on 14.04 or 14.050.846. There's a fairly strong Morse code signal coming in, along with a lot of other stuff. And this is using the talented Balun aerial loop, and it is tuned to 14.07. So I've got the gain set, or the LNA at 8 dB. We got the VGA set to 30 dB, and plus we got the external amplification on, and that seems to be giving a real good reception for some Morse code tonight. But there's some nights I don't get anything. But there, that talented Balun is working on the loop.
Cards and all that stuff.
And they're getting really good. They're getting really good. I'm getting like 1,000-mile radius reception tonight. I'm getting pretty much every state in the union on 20 meters with the HackRF One.
200 hours on either one of them.
Everything's coming really clear.
College and working and all that at the time, so it would be a steal if somebody's really into collecting
but the it's all about the settings. Now I'm at 8, LNA is 8, 20. This is on for my amp, and I got 20. Mine is 30 dB to kind of get that background noise out of there. Let's see, I don't really have too many other settings going on here. Got everything else set about the same as always. Like, I'm not hearing the other guy in this conversation. He must be farther away. Okay, now we have the HackRF is picking up off that loop antenna out of Fort Collins. Really clear, actually. Once again, I'm set to 8. A little fuzzy on the voice. I got 8, 12, and the amp on. Okay, and this is SDR-Radio. Okay, I've got the HackRF over here, and it is running off my loop outside. I'm using SDR-Radio. This is SDR-Radio Console version 2.2. A little tricky kind of getting it set up. To make it happy with VHF, let me go ahead and turn off the sound here, so that we don't have to listen to that. I had to set the LNA to 24, the VGA to 40, the external amp, which is inside the HackRF, to on. There is no power, so that's off. Filters is auto. Display 0, but that is kind of makes a big difference sometimes too. Because I know that our club's repeater is on 147.12, I tuned to that, but it was not dead on the signal wise. So up here I click on that and I adjust this by 1749 megahertz. And you can tweak with this, and when you apply, it just basically corrects for any drift that the HackRF might have, and that does change throughout using it by a few hundred hertz. It drifts a little. Let's see, other settings that I have under the display. I've set it to spectra value. I believe I have it set to schema 1, 2, or 3. That makes this kind of a ground color down here. I also changed, just to bring this ground, just bring out where this base is in the display. I click on spectrum scale and I change it to 80 dB, so I don't see a whole bunch of unnecessary blocked in colors. I go manual, and you can click automatic. It kind of does a quick fix for you, but if you just go manual for your contrast, and you come over here and you just pull this slider up and down until you get this type of contrast you kind of like here. Don't forget your volume adjust. Right now I have it off because I'm talking. And let's see, you want, these are also become critical. You want it at 600k hertz. That gives me the best signal for receiving audio. And of course this is FM narrowband because this is an FM VHF. Another thing that's really strange with the HackRF is you don't want to go over 2 megahertz. And yeah, if you go higher, you need a bigger, better processor. But this machine I'm running on is more than powerful enough to run at 20 megahertz, but it causes signal degrading problems. So I leave it at 2 megahertz, so it does decrease this window down here. And then another critical thing, if you change this, you'll get poor, it'll mess up how it processes the signal, but at 750 kilohertz seems to be a good span to set for. So 2 megahertz overall, but then you narrow it down to 750. That does affect its ability. For some reason, that affects the HackRF's ability to use this program cleanly. And so you got to play with the span versus how wide of a bandwidth it's scanning. I don't know, you just do. If you click the center, you want to make sure you have it set to it does not auto center, because if the frequency you're on happens to snap to the center of this, you'll lose the signal a lot of times. So don't run center over here, and don't do auto centering, and you'll have the best luck. So yeah, really tweaky to get the HackRF to work with this program, but it does work. It works for this. It works for the HF channels, provided the bands are good. It hears really well. It doesn't have a lot of data. It's not really good for the different data modules. So like it has PSK that it'll do if you find a PSK 32 or 64 or 63. It'll do it, but it's not real good at. It doesn't have a lot of different modes, digital modes, but it does do it. Okay, that's it. HackRF working, talented Balun, getting great signals, listening to stuff in different countries. Got China yesterday, like you probably heard. So, thumbs up, everything's working. HackRF, an interesting toy. It's not a radio. Do not get the HackRF if you want to have a radio. It is for experimenting, and you will not be happy with it as a radio, but you'll love it for experimenting with what you can hear. But you really have to play around a lot and really get used to it, and you should run this in Linux the way the maker, it's basically the way Great Scott company that produces it says, do this in Linux and use that software in Linux, but that stuff's not as easy to use in my environment, so I'm trying to get by with this Windows stuff. And we'll just end with listening to this, listening to our net.
There is obviously some kind of a transaction privilege license that you must purchase from the state as well, which I'm not sure.
They're talking about our Hamfest coming up this weekend.
But technically, I imagine you're supposed to do that. So, there you have it. And correct terminology.
Okay.
For the case of
Thanks for joining. Thumbs up if you like the video. And let me know if it helps you out.